here's the issue. There's no inherent framework within the Jupiter archetype for what to do with all the goodness. Like, we received it, we got it, but now what? The ability to receive, to expand upon our reality is really rooted in this core principle of authenticity and sincerity. Right? The principle of expansion that happens with Jupiter is really a direct result of our mindset. And Jupiter corresponds to our mindset, our belief system, how we're interpreting reality. If we're meditating, we come into our meditation experience, our practice, with an openness to experience. We're not holding on to an expectation or a belief of what's supposed to happen. If we're trying to replicate a previous experience or do what someone else told us to do, we're not going to be authentic, meaning we're not going to be fully there in the moment, right? If we're authentic, if we're sincere, then we become available for a spontaneous experience, for a direct experience. That's what Jupiter is all about. It's like the punchline. I think of Jupiter often as humor. A good joke is setting you up for a punchline, and the punchline is funny because you didn't expect it, but it makes sense, right? It's like everything makes sense. There's a sort of samadhi in it. There's an illumination that occurs in a good punchline. And this happens because you weren't trying to laugh. You weren't trying to have the experience of appreciation and humor and being tickled, right? It just, you were available for it. And you could almost feel like the buildup of a joke. It's gonna come. You don't know when it's gonna come. You don't know what it's gonna be. And you can't even tell yourself what you're gonna feel about it until you experience it, right? As we have awakening experiences, we really don't know what that's like until we have that experience. Jupiter is direct experience. With the right outlook and orientation, right, we can be a good traveler, be open to the journey, not hold on to a lot of ideas and assumptions and expectations, and receive a whole lot. But then what? Ideally with Jupiter, we're cultivating throughout our entire life deeper wisdom, deeper insight. Right? We're understanding the principles of reality. We're learning how to live as if we're good travelers on this soul journey for the duration of our entire life. But very often, the expansive experiences that happen with Jupiter are nothing more than flashes in the pan. Right? Something comes, something goes. This is why a lot of people, when they win the lottery, most of the time I've learned, people quickly lose what they've earned, and they go back to the exact same financial reality that they were in prior to the earning. Why is that? Because these expansive experiences don't really tell you what to do after the expansive experience. We need to keep on practicing wisdom. We need to continue to really learn the way of the Tao. The issue is we become exuberant. Oh, I have a lot. I have a lot. Well, let me hoard it, right? And put it away somewhere and not touch it. Or let me use all of it and spend money eating out every night, right? Or I have a lot. Let me get more and put more investments in and try to gamble even more. Win another 30 get another 30,000 lottery tickets and double my, right? When we become opportunistic or fearful and we're acting in haste on the whim of the moment with a mindset of, ooh, there's more. How can I get more? Or how can I protect what I have? That's not the right attitude for realization. That's not the right attitude for growth. It clutters. It takes up space. It takes us from the present moment. It's important to appreciate that real long-term growth in a sustainable way is a Saturn thing. Right? We can cultivate our wisdom and apply the practice, the principles of our learning in life. But to really create a life that will take us to where we want to go means discipline. Means showing up and structuring our life with the necessary limitations, parameters that creates a container for us to practice our learning and our realizations to actually achieve it. So this is sort of the relationship between the spontaneity that occurs in a state of sincere openness to the present moment, right? There's no framework for that, right? There's no framework for enlightenment. There's no framework for spiritual realization. it happens on its own, but there's a space for it. There's an openness. There's something inside that lets go and is available for it. There's no framework for that. That's like, you don't achieve that because you fill in the blank, followed this religion or this practice or this ritual or this discipline. We each on our own, in our own soul journey, have to kind of access our own self-authority and determine how to create the parameters in our life to nurture our realizations. I've often given the example of, you have a philosophy or a spiritual realization, right? And then what happens for most people in the world, that spiritual realization for someone at some point became the principles for a religion. Usually a person had some kind of like enlightening experience, and then a few generations later, some other people made it a religion. But what does that mean? There's a crystallization of our life experiences that allow for a deepening of this realization to become sort of ingrained in our bones, right? To live it. That's the movement from Sagittarius to Capricorn, with Jupiter integrating within a relationship to Saturn. What are the frameworks that we're creating to apply and integrate our realizations long term? Now, of course, we know the issue with that. That's that semi-sextile between Sagittarius and Capricorn. Once we begin putting in place these boundaries and these parameters, it's very possible that we'll lose that sincere, present moment authenticity and sincerity. It's just important to recognize that really you can't look at one function in the chart without understanding its interrelationship with all the other planetary functions. So in a holistic, integrative sense, doing Jupiter work never happens in a vacuum. Within the Jupiter archetype alone, recognizing that big Jupiter transits, big Jupiter experiences don't tell us what to do with all the growth, it's very, very important that we become deeply self-honest and self-reflective of how we are in relationship to the moment. I work a lot with the I Ching, and there's a hexagram in the I Ching, hexagram 42, which is often translated as increase. Now, hexagram 42 I've often associated as being a very Jupiter kind of hexagram, because within 42 it just says increase. There's like, you can go anywhere with it. If you get hexagram 42 in response to a question, it basically says yes, there's a lot of something or a lot of possibilities and potentials, but there's no guideline or framework for how to deal with it. And one of the issues with 42 is too much, right? One of the commentaries in this particular hexagram says, where there is excessiveness, the wise one will diminish. So let's apply this to Jupiter, in particular Jupiter in Taurus. Our clutter, our stuff, all the more that we're trying to achieve, it's very easy for that to accidentally tip over into a state of thinking that if I can add more to my plate, I will have more. But when it becomes excessive, and let me just say for a moment, what is excessive, right? Obviously, excessiveness can't be judged according to some kind of objective quantity, right? So how do we determine the energy, the experience, the reality of excessiveness? Excessiveness is when what we have or what we're doing or what we're engaging with is beyond the threshold of our capacity to live and breathe fully with it in the present moment. When we lose our ground of presence, then this Jupiter in Taurus excessiveness becomes a lot of clutter. Jupiter in Taurus wants to be a lot of repose, a lot of stillness, a lot of relaxation, a lot of peace, a lot of ground. To eliminate excessiveness, to decrease when necessary, is to really appreciate that we're looking for a greater experience of the present moment. So a big part of the work right now is actually looking at where, from a place of insufficiency, will we be creating a lot of anxiousness and anxiety for ourselves in trying to add more and more and more. Now, the other side of that coin is hoarding or protecting, not using, not putting into circulation, or not sharing our gifts. There's a lot of wisdom in being able to stay in this flow of movement and engagement. The Scorpio polarity, the Taurus. Resources need to be released and circulated. And again, it's not just physical resources, it's our inner resources. The psychology of hoarding basically says, if I step out there and I try to make money doing this thing that I love, or if I share these gifts and these passions, I'm not going to be supported. I know so many people in the work that I do that have these experiences in life of having all these talents and these gifts and these potentials, but maybe working a job that they don't love or doing something that they're not into, but like all of this wealth waiting there. And this is not like a Virgo, I'm not good enough, I'm not ready enough thing, right? This is more of I don't trust life. I don't trust that I'll have what I need. And nothing's lost. See, the creativity and the richness itself is non-formative. It's not physical. It's inside of us. It expresses in the things that we do and create and say and express in life. And if we move it out, we'll find more because it's coming from a non-physical source within us. So we won't allow ourselves to really appreciate that we have what we need, and we can trust our intuition and maybe take risks and maybe in time start to build more income with this thing that we really want to do, or try something else that we've never done before. We won't know that about ourselves if we don't start and just let go a little bit. It's the most obvious thing. Nothing will grow if we don't plant a seed. So Jupiter and Taurus, given that there is no framework for what to do with abundance, as things come in, opportunities, experiences, there are a few things to really ground and remember. One, just because it's here doesn't mean you need to take it, accept it, use it, or ask for more of it. If you're looking for, I'll give an example from my own life. I'm working out a lot right now. I've been looking at different equipment, thinking about getting a bike. So I start searching on Facebook Marketplace for some local exercise equipment. I don't necessarily know what exactly I want, like which exercise equipment I want. So I'm not necessarily going to just buy something right away. But I was tempted to, actually, a couple times. I see all these really cool equipment, right? Oh, this is really cheap. Maybe I can have this. But there's a little bit of an anxiety in that, right? The experience of taking more in, but not necessarily feeling the relevance to it, right? Am I actually going to use this? Do I really want it? Do I really feel like this is relating to a value, something that I'm wanting to cultivate? So there's something about feeling it all. Like, oh, there's that exercise bike. Do I want that? I'm not sure. Taurus, thoughtful. Let me research it a little bit. What does this exercise bike work on? What are my exercising intentions? Right? And then we can be willing to try something out, not making it the be all and end all. But that's very different than just rushing into experiences, or here's a new cryptocurrency. Oh, let me just put a lot of money into it. Take your time. So there can be really great spiritual lessons that happen with Jupiter and Taurus on the North Node through having really big experiences of things going sour and becoming overwhelming or losing a lot really quickly. The gift of that is that it can teach us what we're really doing, what's really important for us. Okay, I went too far. I didn't take my time. I was looking for more. I didn't want to miss out. FOMO. I was afraid of missing this opportunity. That's not the way to move. And that's not how you do it. The same thing with our spiritual practice, right? It's like forcing ourselves into a posture or doing a kriya or a breathing exercise or, something that we think if I do this, I will get somewhere. It's almost like we relate to our life from this very detached or dissociative mental place where we think more of something or just the doing of something will get us somewhere. Another example, successful people, wear clean clothing every day. They don't wear the same clothing 2 days in a row. I'm sure someone said that. So then that becomes an idea, right? But you can look up what do successful people do? That becomes an idea. Successful people love the things that they have, right? They treat it with care. If we misapply that, we can become very materialistic. Like, oh, I got to get something really, I see a really cool, I want that computer. It's $5,000. Let me get that, all right? Or let me wear new clothing every day, but you think that you have to like buy something really fancy and nice, right? Like, it's just the energetic experience of feeling grounded and alive and available and connected. So I just really want to end this video with this prayer and this blessing for us. Let us use the gifts that we've been given. Give, share it, put it into circulation, even in small ways. Let us take the time with our intuitive impulses, what we're called to, what we're sensing. Taking our time not to procrastinate or wait for something to happen to us, but it's like being in a conscious, intuitive relationship to the field within which we're working. You know, it's very interesting. When we narrow our field of search to more specific parameters, we get better results. If you just say, yeah, I'm looking for a new home. Well, there are a lot of homes. You can rent a lot of places. I'm looking for some equipment. There's a lot of equipment out there, and that can get overwhelming. When you know what you want, it's easier to find it, even if it limits the field of possibilities. It seems paradoxical, but it's actually because the goodness that we receive from life happens through our availability to receive it. It's relevance in our experience.